I'm so excited to get this episode out. The Float Research Collective, it's live, it's a real entity, it's a nonprofit. Dr. Feinstein has done a massive amount of work to make this thing happen, and I hope you enjoy, listen, learn more about it, come up with some questions, and we'll see you hopefully Wednesday the 21st for a live QA hosted by Art of the Float with Dr. Feinstein. If you have any questions after this, please join us, talk to us. And there's also, that's Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And there's also an FTA hosted one. If you're not able to make it that early or on that day, then join us on the 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific. And that one's hosted by the FTA. Dr. Feinstein will be there as well, not only to figure out questions, but also to see how you can be a part of it. Obviously, we'll be talking today about how every float center owner can be a part of it, but we need volunteers and people to join up and help build this research program as well. It's really exciting. Gosh, before we get to it, big shout out to Helmbot. Thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast and making episodes like this happen. We couldn't be here without you. So really, truly, thank you. Helmbot is an incredible piece of software designed from the ground up for float center owners. And if you're not already aware of Helmbot, you need to check it out. Go to helmbot.com, see how they can be your scheduling software. Tracking your metrics is a great way. Gosh, we had a hydrogen peroxide issue at the shop, and it was so great to be able to go in and identify where the problems were happening and the employees that were, miseducated on how to handle hydrogen peroxide, and then we're able to nip that and get things right back on track. So really good stuff. Also, they can do scheduling for your employees in addition to your clients, and then also just like workshops, classes, LMTs, all that stuff. Helmbot can do it. Great reporting as well. And the ridiculous customer service they have is honestly the best I've ever experienced. I can truly say that. Their customer service it's just bananas. It's bananas great. So go to helmbot.com. Don't take my word for it. Take a tour with them. Have them walk you through it. You can even do a demo if you want and go through it yourself and make sure it's a good fit. It's really absolutely risk-free. Helmbot.com, again, is where you want to go. I'm also so excited to announce that the Float Tank Association is now advertising on Art of the Float podcast. This is a dream come true for me. The FTA has grown incredibly over the last few years, both in board members that are working on it, and also in the organization that they have and the reach that they are taking part in now, whether they're helping with marketing, education, memberships, education on water sanitization, float tank manufacturers. I mean, they're really taking it all and giving it back to the community. There are a lot of free resources. There are also live roundtable discussions, so you can talk live with the community about things like memberships that happened recently, and also experts in like sanitation, like Roy Vore, who I believe is also on the board of the FTA, will be on there, and you can just dialogue with industry experts about what's going on. Also, in this episode, we talk about how Justin Feinstein will be talking about the FRC, the Float Research Collective as well. These are just amazing opportunities. Flotation.org. Go there, check out all the free resources that they have. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. Just like the associations for massage or for acupuncture, there needs to be people contributing to this organization for that organization to help the industry and to help it grow, solidify. It means when lawmakers want to make a law or make any rules for a float center, they have somebody to go to that's the industry standard that can talk for you. You don't have to know every single detail about starting your float center. The FTA can help you. So, oh my gosh, if you are just starting a float center, if you are running a float center, I implore you to go to flotation.org, check out everything they have to offer, again, for free, and I highly encourage you to sign up and be a part of the FTA. They deliver so much back to the community. I swear it's tenfold. So excited to join the FTA, guys. Thanks for supporting the show. Really excited about this. Again, flotation.org is where you want to go. Gosh, so excited about that. And let me just bridge off of that to this really exciting episode. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Art of the Float, where float centers thrive. My name is Dylan. I own the float shop in Portland, Oregon, with my lovely wife, Sandra. And to be honest, I don't have a fundraising team for the FRC yet. I will say I was part of the beta, so I created that, and then I didn't realize that didn't transfer over. So I'll have to create one. But I think my goal was it just for $1,000 or $10,000? I don't know. What did you guys do?
Hey, everybody, it's Kim Hannon. I co-own Tsukino Float Center in Salt Cave in southern Indiana with my husband. I set up my goal. I started with 5,000, and then after I spoke to Dr. Feinstein at the conference, I changed it to 10,000, and I have a feeling that number is probably going to change again.
Nice.
Well, my name is Gloria Morris, and I own Float 60 in Chicago, and I'm feeling like a slacker because I think I signed up for 1,000, so now I'm going to have to change it, obviously, with peer pressure. But no, very excited, and looking forward to getting it set up.
This is Drew from New Hampshire Float, and not to be outdone with Gloria's $1,000, I have $0, and I'm not even sure what's going on after my little hiatus here from, I've been a little bit out of the loop for the last few weeks. So I have no clue what you guys are really talking about, to be honest. And I am actually excited because today we have someone who will explain it, not only to me, but to anyone else who may not understand these numbers and sums that keep going up and what the purpose of them are for.
Thank you, Drew. Yeah, that's a great segue. Thank you, Dr. Feinstein, for joining us tonight.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Good. I feel like I'm finally recovered from the float conference.
You know, you guys may have recovered. Yesterday, I had the most unbelievable fish tacos with James and Amy Harder.
Oh,
What?
so jealous.
What?
I kid you not. They called me up. They say, we just landed in Maui. What you up to? I said, come on over. We had a great lunch. We went floating at the most incredible beach. It was like raining everywhere except this one beach. And James and I were out at the sea. And then suddenly my two kids joined us, and there was these giant waves. They came out of nowhere. James couldn't believe it. He's like, you let your kids do that? I said, normally not. These kids were like little fish. But anyways, we're out there floating in the sea in Maui and just reflecting on how amazing the conference was.
Dude, so they had a well-earned vacation after...
Oh, they're in Hawaii for a couple weeks, I think.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that.
They have a wedding out here. They're making a nice sort of post-float vacation out of it.
Nice.
Our last episode was about the float conference specifically, and we acknowledged how much work those guys put into making that conference just be fire. Awesome. So I'm so glad they're able to...
It was one of my all-time favorites.
Same.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Same.
There was something special.
The COVID wasn't special.
That's...
dare I bring...
COVID was pretty special. I'd say it was very special.
As I mentioned on the last podcast, if there was any time or fashion to get COVID, that's the way it's done. That was the best way to get it, and it was worth every hour I spent in bed post-FloatCon.
Agreed. It's actually kind of nice to have an excuse to recover, because I didn't have a trip to Hawaii planned. And so I was planning on just coming back. I spent a couple of extra days in Portland and then had, thought that I would just jump right back into work. But the universe had other plans, and it was kind of nice, actually, just to take it easy for a little bit and marinate in that FloatCon glow for a little bit longer.
Well, for next year, Kim, you got to come out then, because you will be hosting the conference in Louisville.
Yes.
And I feel like a vacation will be definitely due at that point.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe that's the new rule: is local liaisons must travel to Hawaii afterwards. So,
and
or at least scout
too.
out where 2024 might be.
Yep, got some work to do.
Elbow right in the rib.
He's relentless.
I want to keep talking about the Float Conference, but we should move on to other things. But before we even start talking to Justin specifically, I just want to welcome Drew back. I'm not even sure how long you've been away from the podcast, but just because we had a hiatus during the Float Conference time and the last episode recording, I feel like it's been forever since I've seen your face, man. It's good to see you. Welcome back.
Yay.
It does feel like that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's only been one episode, but it's been an eternity in real life.
Right.
So, yeah, there's been obviously a lot going on, which we'll talk about in another episode coming up. But I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to see everybody, and what a return to come back with Justin as a guest. And I'm really excited to learn about what I missed out on at the Float Conference, but I know is a big part of the future of our industry, of which I am still currently a part of. So I do care about what's going on with the future of our industry. So I'm excited to be back and excited to have Justin on tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. Dr. Feinstein, you announced the FRC at the Float Conference this year. How was that for you?
You know, it felt like a long time coming. Dylan, especially you out of everybody, has known about the incarnation of the idea of the FRC, or the Float Research Collective, since its inception. I mean, I think there's an Art of the Float podcast somewhere, maybe you'll have to find it, where I'm sitting there at like the 2018 conference, or maybe it's the 2017 conference, just talking about this idea that we need some sort of infrastructure to get research really moving in this industry. And you have a whole recording of it. I think you even have my slides up on it.
And that's right. Yes. Woo. Yeah, that's right.
You came, I think, with all your audio material to one of those Friday meetings before the conference started.
I remember that.
That's right. Yeah.
And so,
I will
to
link
me,
to that
this
as well, if anybody wants to go back in time.
But this is kind of, a long time coming for me, for the float industry. I think we've needed something like this for a long time. Well, I never had the time to put this together when I was working at Laureate. I've been devoting, just to give you guys a sense, full time, 40 to 50 hours a week just on the FRC this past year. And of course, we haven't raised any money, so I've been doing all of this for free. But I want to do it because this has been a dream of mine for so long. It's the sort of thing that, it's going to take a few years to gain full momentum, for sure. I have no delusions about that. But its goals and its dreams are so big, I honestly feel that within the next decade, we could fundamentally change the ecosystem by which health providers are providing care using float therapy. Mm-hmm. I really feel like float therapy could become a preventative tool for so many conditions. And if this was just reimbursed at a pretty much a completely subsidized rate, so people could just float for free. I mean, imagine, let's just dream big. Imagine, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, anybody as part of their daily life or weekly routine could just go float. And as such, it would prevent so many stress-related ailments and diseases that the cost to society would come back tenfold in just people living a better life, a healthier life. And to me, the ripple effects of floating are only just beginning to be discovered. Right now, we've been studying the acute effects in patients who suffer from severe stress and anxiety. We're seeing big effects in this group. Now magnify that to the entire world, who all has some level of stress and anxiety. And the ripple effects of floating could just be giant. They could be enormous. And so I'm very optimistic that we could actually turn in this idea that started many years ago at an incarnation of a float conference meeting. Actually, it may have been Rise. It may have been Rise. Do you remember that, Dylan? You were there too. You've been there for all of this. but the idea started as this idea that we got to bring floating to the masses of people who could greatly benefit from this therapy. And how could we do that in a systematic way, in a scientific way, and get the medical community to really make this accessible to the patients who need it the most? These were the sort of conversations we were having. And here we are, 4 or 5 years later, And it's here. We have the 501c3 status. We're an official nonprofit organization. I'm devoting every ounce of my energy towards this project. I have all my marbles in this basket because I believe it's actually going to work. It's one of the few times in my scientific career where I've really seen a modality that I could say I fully believe in its effect, the reliability of this effect, the replicability of this effect. And so we're really at a cool moment, I feel like, because the world hasn't learned about floating yet, but they're about to. And the Float Research Collective is going to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to deep dive into this. There are questions I have for you still that I want to get into, but I want to back it up a little bit. I want to bring up Brooke real quick. I kind of consider Brooke to be a major fulcrum point of the FRC, even beginning, because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but based off some personal conversations we had, going back to COVID first hitting, I remember talking and you talking about how Brooke is just, she's up to here with kids all day long. I know you were still working long hours at Liber, and I think some of that is the reason you ended up moving to Hawaii. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really wild. So I give the TEDx talk about floating and how important it is to disconnect from technology just for our nervous system. January of 2020. I knew right around then that this pandemic was coming. There was already inclinations I was following. March 2020, kids come home, homeschool. I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, I'm at least 2, if not 3 years away from this resolving. There's no way I knew this was an overnight fiasco. This was going to be a multi-year dilemma. I'm looking at my wife, my lovely wife, Brooke, who, was trying her best to homeschool the kids all by herself, trial by fire, never had homeschooled kids who, were in first grade and third grade, very formative years. Wow. The kids are sitting there, totally saying, what the hell is happening to this world? I can't go to school anymore. Yeah. Every day we're walking around the neighborhood, the same neighborhood where, we're landlocked in Oklahoma. And one day my son, Elliot, turns to me and I say, son, how are you dealing with all of this? How's it going? You're being homeschooled, all this stuff. He looks at me, he goes, it's not too bad, Dad, but I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing you all the time.
Fair.
So I said, okay, we need to change the scenery. We need to get the grandparents into the equation. And we need to get these kids more active, doing fun things like swimming every day. And it was really, to be honest, you guys, a crossroads moment in life. Because I was in a very good situation at Laureate. They're a fantastic, amazing place to work at. But it was really difficult to imagine my family surviving for the next 2 years under that circumstance. And so it ended up being a really tough decision to make. But when I made it, I'm so happy I did, because the kids are so happy now as a consequence. They're seeing their grandparents every day. They're going swimming every day.
Oh, man.
They're getting to experience a type of lifestyle I could have never imagined growing up. They're very chilled. They're very mellow. They're understanding the importance of being mindful in life and appreciating the moment and taking in the sunsets. Things that, I think for them, it's something they couldn't have gotten anywhere else. And ever since then, I've been happy about this transition. I still have very good relations with Laureate. I'm collaborating with them on multiple projects. Nice. Dr. Saib Khalsa, who's taken over the Float Clinic and Research Center, could not imagine a better person to take that clinic over. He's already made some groundbreaking discoveries with anorexia nervosa, one of the hardest to treat conditions in psychiatry. And you got to get him on a podcast just to learn about that, because to me, these findings are going to be opening up every single inpatient unit for anorexia to floating. They should be. If you're an inpatient unit, you should be taking these results very seriously, because we found a tremendous anxiolytic effect, and it improved their body image in a healthy way. So to me, this is an incredible finding for a modality that's so simple and so easy to disseminate. And I think this is something that you're going to see in hospitals, in healthcare offices, all over the country in the coming years. It has to be.
Awesome. I love it. I love that. So I do just want to make it real clear. It wasn't just that Brooke was overwhelmed with raising kids, but she is also part of the FRC. She is a believer in floating, and she's
an officer. She's our secretary.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
No. She's done an incredible amount of work. Social media wise, all of you know from my TED Talk how much I feel like social media is going to be the death of us all. But regardless, I call it a necessary evil, because it's a great way to communicate and reach a lot of people simultaneously. And so all the social media you guys could credit to my wife. She was the one who's been nagging me for ages to even start it. And it now has started. So if you guys don't know, we do have like a united, is it called a handle?
Right. Yeah. Social media handle. Yeah.
I'm learning the lingo at Float Research.
Dr. Feinstein has the most hilarious TikTok videos. You just have to check them out. I'm just kidding. I don't think you have TikTok.
Brooke wants me to start a TikTok account. I'm being serious.
You gotta. You should. You should.
I can't. I don't know if I'm ready yet. But for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, it's all at Float Research. Yeah. We need everybody to sign up, because we're going to be disseminating a ton of messages over the coming weeks. Very important messages that I don't think have ever resonated through this community before. And I'm excited to see where this ripple effect goes.
So let's talk about that ripple effect, where it all starts as it's hitting the water. Let's talk about the FRC and what your vision and the board's vision is for immediate goals and long-term goals for the Float Research Collective.
So, full disclaimer, Dylan and Sandra Kalm are part of our board of directors. And the board of directors has a tremendous say in the FRC. In fact, they run the entire nonprofit in terms of the major decisions. And I'm part of that board of directors as well. I'm hoping one day we could recruit Kim into that amongst all of her other board of director positions. But
wait, Art of Float wants to hire her. Wait, what?
Kim's been a tremendous help on the fundraising committee, which has been meeting weekly now, and has made a ton of progress. And so anyways, the basic premise of the Float Research Collective is we're on this mission to get worldwide acceptance for floating in the medical community, in the health care community. And we're quite specific in our goals, in the sense that we feel like conditions related to pain, stress, and anxiety, that triad of pain, stress, and anxiety, both the symptoms, but also the disorders. There's a lot of anxiety disorders like generalized anxiety or social anxiety, or things like post-traumatic stress disorder or chronic back pain. All of this would fit into that triad. We feel like those elements could all benefit tremendously from floating. And it's not just a feeling. It's an empirical sense based off of the data that's been collected. This is a research collective in the sense that we're trying to make sure we do this using the most sound scientific principles, the most gold standard of trial designs using randomized controlled trials, and in a way that the medical community could really embrace this as a legitimate tool. And to me, that's what's so unique about the Float Research Collective is we're a research organization, and we're also an advocacy organization. We're trying to advocate for floating amongst the various providers and powers that be in healthcare. Shake that tree, right? Shake that tree and say, listen, the way that you've been trying to deal with these ailments that resonate throughout our society, you take that triad of pain, stress, and anxiety, we're talking about millions and millions of people who fall into that triad, okay? And the way that our healthcare system is trying to alleviate those conditions now is by medicating them away. And we're saying, no, we have a whole new model here. We could relieve pain, stress, and anxiety, but without the use of these highly addictive medications and without the side effects of these highly addictive medications. A totally natural way, and we now have data to prove it in the most severe of these clinical conditions. That's what's exciting to me. 5 years ago when I started this, we didn't have the data. We have the data now.
And so if we have the data, then why the FRC?
Well, listen, for those of you who know how bureaucratic our healthcare system is, let me open your eyes. This is the biggest red tape you'll see in the world. I'm convinced that every other country might approve floating before America will embrace it. And then America will finally say, oh, maybe we were supposed to reimburse for that. We could have really saved ourselves. But we might be the last domino to fall. I'm going to be going to Australia soon in a month. Australia, which has a nationalized healthcare system, might be the first domino to fall. They're already reimbursing it for workman's comp and disability.
So cool. And so going back to and by the way, yeah, Australia, that is so impressive. And I just get jealous when I think about that, to be honest. I love that they're so progressive. And way more float centers than I ever realized are opening up or already exist in Australia. It's a real mecca.
Oh, yeah, they're taking off down there.
But back to the FRC and the goals for the FRC. So you've been doing float research for many years, and so is Dr. Saib, and that's been building up. So what is specifically the FRC going to do to bring to the table so that there is more acceptance for floating?
So we basically have three primary aims to achieve our mission. And I think all of them are achievable. So the first is we want to create a cloud-based platform that will enable the collection of publishable data from recreational float centers across the world. So that's a big goal. Right now, I would estimate, we have anywhere between 500 to 1,000 float centers worldwide that are actually open. We definitely lost a couple during the pandemic. But anywhere in that range we have in terms of businesses that have people coming in and floating recreationally, some people on a regular basis. And I think it would be incredible if even 10 to 20% of those float centers signed up to be part of this cloud-based platform. And, we could collect thousands and thousands of data points every day or week that this cloud-based system is up and running. And to me, this would be the gift that keeps giving for the float industry. And it would also help us answer some very important questions from a scientific standpoint, from a medical standpoint, about how floating is benefiting the average person. And so to me, this is one of the primary aims of the Float Research Collective. The second one is about constructing our own dedicated FRC float clinic. And this would really be focused on doing the sorts of studies you couldn't do using this cloud-based system. So these would be more or less systematic, randomized controlled trials in clinical populations, in patient populations. And we would be able to answer questions that even academia, if you will, would be scared to answer. We'll be able to take on special interests that would be very difficult to do otherwise. And one of those I hope we talk about today is how much Big Pharma has completely, in many ways, taken over our healthcare system, our model of how we deliver healthcare. And to a detriment, I would say, in the realm of pain and anxiety. And we could talk about that, but I feel like we could conduct the sort of clinical trials that could really be paradigm shifting and really take on this model of Big Pharma and medicating by popping pills in order to relieve our distress. I think we could create a new model in society. And, the final aim is we want to launch a pilot grant fund to help facilitate float research at universities and hospitals. I feel like we need a lot more people other than myself conducting research, looking at various clinical conditions, replicating effects that have already been found. And there's ways we could actually facilitate it. In fact, I was just on the phone today with Andy Larson, who I'm so excited is hopefully going to be the treasurer for the Float Research Collective. And Andy, who owns Float Milwaukee, for those who don't know, is also an accountant by training and, really understands the ins and outs of what floating could do therapeutically, because he's the first recreational float center I'm aware of that has an IRB-approved research study with a local hospital. It's one of the top trauma hospitals, acute trauma hospitals in the whole area. And he's collaborating with a local investigator who is sending patients who've been traumatized to float to see if you could prevent the onset of PTSD in a recreational facility. So I feel like this is really a neat aspect of, how you could actually push float research forward and show that this has a therapeutic value. And we could create these pilot funds where we could facilitate this research all over the country. So those are the three primary aims of the FRC. It will help us get to that ultimate goal of getting the medical community to take this seriously. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I feel like this is the sort of a level of scientific proof that's going to be necessary in a medical system that is so intractable like ours is.
As a float center owner, I am fascinated by the idea of people who float at my float center participating in something like this. What would that look like? Would it be they wear something? They just fill out a before and after float survey? How has that even been, has that been figured out yet? Is that still TBD? But I am curious from the float center standpoint, what would that look like? What would we be asking our floaters to be doing?
Good question.
So I think in the initial incarnation, it would be more or less a tablet-based system. So if you had an iPad or some tablet at your center, that is all you would need. We would collect some information about the type of float tanks that you use, some of the basic parameters of your float center. We would have some ethical onboarding to sort of explain to you the process of how you would have to conduct the research, ethically speaking. And by the way, all of this we would make sure we ran through the IRB. I think this is important because any data we got, I would like to be publishable in a journal, a scientific journal. And in order to do that, you need to have the IRB involved. And I essentially think you would use more or less what we call a convenience sample, meaning they've already come into float, they've sitting in the post-float lounge, hanging out, and they would have the opportunity to pick up this iPad or tablet and answer a few questions about their experience. And it wouldn't be incentivized, you wouldn't be giving away free floats or anything. It would just be them volunteering to participate in this study so we could learn more about what floating was like for them. And, to me, I think we could answer a lot of very interesting questions just through that means. One of the questions that I think is super important is every float center has membership plans. And you have floaters that come religiously every week or every month, and they've been doing it for a long time. Well, let's just focus on those floaters for a minute. Just take them aside and say, why? Why are you floating every week or every month? What is it benefiting in your life? What kind of conditions or symptoms are you noticing are improving? And have a sample of, let's just imagine 10,000 floaters around the world who are members, and a list of all of those conditions that they're using floating for. Maybe we're going to learn things that we never heard about before or thought about before that floating is helping with. Maybe it will confirm that triad I was talking about earlier of pain, stress, and anxiety. And all of these patients and various individuals with these symptoms or conditions are floating and finding benefit. And so, to me, this is an important study. We could do that within a year's time if we just got this cloud-based system up and running. And it would be super easy as a tablet.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. That's so exciting. Yeah, I think it'll be great. And I know the people at my float center who float regularly are my best advocates, and they really believe in floating. And it's probably a question that I haven't asked them in a while. And like, why are you still floating? I have people that have been floating 2, 3, 4 years. And that's not a question that comes up, but there's a reason they're doing it, right? They feel better, and it is helping them with something. So gathering that information, I see how valuable that could be if you had thousands of people, giving you those data points. That it's awesome and fascinating to hear.
Awesome. No, we need that, and we need that sort of enthusiasm from many float centers, because if we had 100% participation, we could have sample sizes, I'm estimating, in the hundreds of thousands. Because when you think about over the course of a year, how many different floaters come into your center, and times that by the number of float centers and each day of the year, we have a lot of floaters coming in around the world.
Can I ask about IRB approval? Would that be something that would be done for the study overall, or would every float center need some kind of isolated approval? And then would it matter like what type of float tanks we have? Like what is quote unquote floating to this? Like, because I have an open float tank, somebody has a float around, enclosed, there are all these different styles. I'm curious how that will all fit in, or do we just collect the information and then parse through it later? So I guess there were two questions there.
I'm working with several different IRBs now. I think this is somewhat of a TBD answer. But my own take is this is a convenient sample, and there's a way that we could actually de-identify all of the data, make sure that we do this in an ethical fashion where they could voluntarily pick up these iPads and fill out the answers. We're not incentivizing it or coercing the research whatsoever. We're only collecting post-float measures. And I think it could be done in a way that is exempt from the IRB. And that's the way I'm actually going to approach it. But we have to get it approved still, in the sense that they have to stamp it as we understand this is a convenient sample. You're de-identifying all of the data. You're not going to have any risks if this data should get out to the world. And one of the advantages of that, I should mention, is this could be a database that could be mined by multiple people. It's de-identified. So, there may be people like Roy Vore, who I was talking to at the conference, that want to collect safety data on water quality at float centers using this cloud-based infrastructure. And he could analyze all of that data. There may be, people on FTA who want to talk about marketing things, and they could analyze the data in a way that could help them target the things that will help people the most with floating. I think this is a data set for the community. And the reason I call it a collective, the Float Research Collective, is I really view this as a community resource. Everything about this is trying to do things that will help the float community, because this is an important therapy that we think could help millions of people. That's the motivation behind this.
I know there are 3 tiers, and one I think you call the moonshot, which is the floating versus benzos. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, where to begin? So, one in 8 people in America right now have a benzo prescription. It's one of the most heavily prescribed drugs.
That is wild.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's been that way since its inception in the 60s. When Valium first came out, it was the little yellow pill. They called it Mother's Little Helper. Seriously, they had advertisements. You had kids pulling at the mother's skirt, the husband yelling at the mother in the mother's ear, and the advertisement was Mother's Little Helper. Pop a Valium and you'll feel better.
Wow. Dark,
and
man, that's
by the late 70s, there was about 2 billion pills being sold a year in America, which only has a few 100 million people. So what ended up happening, they didn't realize this in the 60s or the 70s or even the 80s, but the 90s, 2000s come around, Xanax comes out, an even more powerful version of Valium, and then suddenly people started realizing, wait a second, I can't stop taking these drugs. And they try to come off of it and they feel ill, but not just ill, they feel deathly, like the worst type of withdrawal symptoms you could imagine, worse than opioid withdrawal. You could die from benzo withdrawal. You could go into seizures. It's a brutal withdrawal, and it's a very physiological withdrawal that could take months to overcome. And so when all these doctors were handing out prescriptions to Mother's Little Helper, which, by the way, Arthur Sackler of the Sackler family coined, the same Sackler family that came up with Oxycontin and got pretty much half the country addicted to. Anyways, to me, there's an evil part of this history because they got a society hooked on a very addictive drug that you could not come off of. It's not a safe drug that doesn't have physiological withdrawal, which, by the way, there's few that have that profile. And, to me, all the patients I worked with throughout the years when I did the float studies at Laureate would often come out of the float and say, what did you just do in there? And I would say, what do you mean? And they would go, I feel like I took a benzo, but my mind is so clear. When I take these benzos, I feel zombified. I feel stupefied. I feel sedated. But I come out of the float, I don't have the anxiety, but I am clear-headed, I'm clear-minded. And so, I'm basing this partially off of the patients who are the most experienced with their suffering, telling me that floating is having an anti-anxiety effect as good as the benzos, but with a much better side effect profile.
Right. That's incredible.
So to me, this was an interesting anecdote. And this initial effect that we published on in 2018 has now been replicated 5 different times in 5 new randomized controlled trials in severely ill patients with high levels of anxiety. So to me, the idea of taking on benzodiazepine is not so far-fetched anymore. We have data that even in patients with anorexia nervosa, which, by the way, are well known to be resistant to benzos. Most people don't know that, but the nervosa part of anorexia, the anxiety, does not tend to get better with benzos. We were able to induce a highly reliable anxiolytic effect even in the most severe inpatient sample. And so I feel like not only can we beat a benzo like Xanax in terms of the short-term anxiety effect, but over the course of 2 days, we now have multiple data sets showing that you still feel the anti-anxiety effects of floating 2 days later. If you take a Xanax, 4 hours or maybe 8 hours later, the anxiety is reemerging. You have a rebound effect. We're seeing it 48 hours later. I think we will beat the benzos over the course of 2 days. So I want to do this study, Dylan, not because I think floating is as good as a benzo. I want to do this study because I think we could actually beat the benzo in a much safer way and in a reliable way. We have data across 6 floats, across 8 floats, that every single time the patient floats, the anxiety goes down. Highly reliable effect. A Cohen's d above a 1.2 in most cases, which is a very large effect size.
Okay. You got me pumped.
I'm ready to run through a wall for floating right now. This is awesome.
Maybe I don't know what I'm doing here, but it seems like a good segue to talk about fundraising after that. So we have a podcast for Float Center owners. Like that is, we have some managers listening, but you are talking specifically to the people who, I guess, run the float industry. Is that the right way to put it? The people who host floats. So the people who own the centers. Let's talk about teams. Let's talk about signups, and let's break down the fundraising process.
So, to me, the only way this will succeed is as a team. all of us understand the power of floating, and we need to shake the feathers of this giant beast, which we call the modern medical system. And in order to do so, we need to fundraise a lot of money. You know, the clinical trials I'm talking about in terms of floating taking on a benzodiazepine in a head-to-head manner, not just at the FRC float clinic that we're going to build, but also at other sites and locations to show that this is an effect that's replicable no matter where you do it. And to get this into the best possible, highest impact journal, I estimate it's going to cost about $10 million. Now, for some, they may say, oh my God, that's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But actually, when you look at the traditional study that Big Pharma runs, like Xanax, in order to get approved, a phase 3 clinical trial will typically cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And, you know, this is an order of magnitude less, but I feel like we could do a very convincing study with that amount of money. And in hundreds of patients, honestly. To me, this is a study that we have to do. It will be the first study, by the way, that has ever been done against a benzo using a non-pharmacological intervention.
Oh, interesting.
So, for example, there's never been a meditation versus benzo study. There's never been an acupuncture versus benzo study. There's never been a yoga versus benzo study. There's never even been a psychotherapy versus benzo study. We would be the first behavioral intervention to say we could reduce anxiety in as reliable and effective way as a benzo. And we will be the first, and we will win this. I'm telling you guys. To me, all the tea leaves are showing that we could win this thing. And for $10 million, I think this is actually a drop in the bucket compared to the millions of dollars of savings that we will help people with who suffer from clinical anxiety, who suffer from horrible conditions like, say, agoraphobia, where you can't even leave your house. We will get those people back out into the world. We will help people come out of their shell with social anxiety. We'll help people with PTSD overcome their trauma. There's so many things floating will do once this gets approved as a medical intervention. But right now, we got to show that we could beat the gold standard for reducing short-term anxiety. And this is it. And so right now, we're going to do a team-based fundraising strategy. We want to get this message as broadly out to society as possible. And, you know, people like you, Dylan, and Kim, and all the people on the fundraising committee, I feel like we should mention everybody, but we have Mandy Rowe on that committee. We have Beth Jones helping out as well. Andy Shayer is on the committee. Brad Dock is on the committee as well. And Jonathan Rug, who is doing so much to inspire everybody. This is a committee that is just a volunteer-based committee but believes in this mission. We're meeting every week. We're trying to get this message out as broadly as possible. And in order to do that, we need everyone's help. That's the idea of this team-based fundraising campaign. It's not even so much you guys to raise the $10 million. I don't think it's even fair to ask the float community to raise $10 million. We're a community that's so new. We're so young. You know, to me, what I want is, as a community, to spread our wings and just touch all those people in our community who have tried floating and spread this message of what we're trying to do and see how they respond. This is really just about an outreach effort more than even fundraising. And I think it's important that people recognize that. We're in a tough time right now financially. I have no doubt that the next year is just going to be very volatile, no matter how we want to slice this. And I really don't want any of you to feel obligated to donate your own money to the collective right now. I completely get it. What we're asking for is your outreach, and that's it. We really want you to reach your network, show them that you're trying to raise money for this cause, and continuing to sort of poke them with this new information about what floating could benefit. And we're going to be providing every single team with their own sort of social media packet that will give them all the materials they need to spread this message. We're going to be making it as easy as possible for the teams. And all we're asking is just sign up. Sign up to be a team. We'll help you sort of create this whole fundraising campaign, make it as easy as possible for you to do it. And the more people we could reach simultaneously, which is really the goal here, starting September 26th, when this begins, everybody's going to be just blasting this message out in synchrony, like a fireworks show. And the more people that do this, the algorithm is going to spread it to even more people. And we really need the concerted and united effort of the whole float community if this is going to be a success.
Yeah, I feel like I usually just want to ask questions, but I got to say, so first I just want to say Justin's idea of not asking float centers directly for donations was pretty, I'll go ahead and say genius. I thought it was a very good call to use float centers as mouthpieces to spread the word out instead of float centers as direct fundraisers. First of all, I think that was the right call, and I think that was just such an astute idea. I mean, I know you talk with a lot of float center owners. You know where we're at. It's not we're not making money hand over fist, right? And so, and in this economy, it's just people are trying to stay open, and I mean, aside from Drew, who is making money hand over fist, so some float centers are doing better than others. But yeah. Anyway, I think that was very sensitive, and I appreciate that a lot. The other part I just want to say is that Justin is talking about like the welcome pack and the information, the social media information that's going to go out for float centers to share and all of that. Working behind the scenes with the group of people, everybody that he's just mentioned, it has been so impressive. This is not, I don't know. This is an amateur hour. I'm really impressed by the quality of product that's being made. Whether it's just the clear branding, the copy that's being written, the fact that there will be a welcome pack sent out to everybody, and then the continual information that's going to be sent out so far is just, I am impressed by it personally. And I know I'm not fully objective here, but I would also not be touting it this much if I weren't so confident about it and impressed by it. So again, props to the people that are working on this. They are remarkable, and they're making something that's really valuable. And one thing that we were discussing in our last meeting, and I apologize for not citing the person who brought this up, but this is not a social media campaign to continually ask your customers for a donation. This is another source of content for you to put out to your clientele that will occasionally bring up that there is, that you can donate, and there will always be referencing the Float Research Collective and hashtags, that kind of thing. But this will be an asset to your social media content that you're putting out there, which I think most of us want more social media content. They want more material to be able to put out there. So I am very pleased by what's going to be going out there. And if I may, just a little bit longer here, as far as like a little call to action here, if you're listening to this and if you're inspired by what Justin is talking about, I would say go right now. In fact, Justin, where should they go if they do want to create a team?
The simplest way is everything is at clinicalfloat.org. That tells you all about what the Float Research Collective is. It gives you a repository of all the peer-reviewed publications on floating. And there's a donate tab. Click on the donate tab, and that takes you to our fundraiser page. For those who want to go directly to it, it's clinicalfloat.fundraise without the D.org. We could maybe put it in the show notes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And there's a very simple way to start your own fundraiser. Just, click the button that says help us fundraise and answer a few questions. You get to have your own personalized page. It could have your logo on it, your team or business name. You have your own URL address, and you could share this broadly with your own network, and it will convey the whole message of what we're trying to do, the mission. Next week, in fact, my presentation from this year's Float Conference is going to be released. It will explain the whole fundraising campaign, the whole big project, taking on big pharma and benzos and also opioids, by the way. And, to me, this is all going to be integrated into that one page that will be your own personal team page. And, it's a pretty neat process that only takes about 5 minutes, you guys, honestly.
It's so simple.
And Jonathan Rugg is going to put out this weekend a little YouTube explainer video just to show you how easy it is. And it takes 2 seconds to do. It will open up all these cool features for you to share with your social network. But more importantly, it will make you part of this bigger mission to get floating accepted as a medical treatment that could help millions and millions of people. And it's going to be a long mission. This is not the sort of fundraiser that it's snap your fingers and it's over. Yay! What was the old Jerry Lee Lewis, telethon? We're not doing that. It's going to be a long campaign. It starts on September 26th, and we're going to keep fighting until we could reach our goals. And it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see all these messages that we're about to send out sort of ripple through the whole community.
Justin was talking about the fireworks earlier. We don't want this to be your neighbor lighting a bottle rocket off in his backyard and then a few minutes later lighting off a sparkler. We want everybody synced up and launching at the same time. So if you're listening to this, and again, if this is motivating you, if this feels like something you want to be a part of, I implore you to sign up now as opposed to later on so that we can launch with as much momentum as possible and really make waves. A few little things I want to bring up. The tutorial video, the explainer video for how to sign up will be coming up soon. It is very simple, but I feel like there are a couple questions that come up. One is I think you do sign up as an individual, which is I think confusing because you're a business owner, so you're expecting something different. Do click through to that, and then it will still ask for your business name and logo, stuff like that. Not that you even have to enter that as soon as you sign up. I'll also say there's like a why are you signing up or why do you want to fundraise for this? You can write straight out of your heart and write your own copy there by all means. At the same time, if you just want to put a placeholder there, we'll also be sending out information, things to put in there that we think are inspirational or the reasons that we believe in the Float Research Collective. I think those are the only bits. Again, it's very easy to sign up.
And we are going to have a Q&A coming up, actually several Q&As, but Dylan, maybe you could remind everybody of the date and time.
Yeah, so September 21st at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 o'clock Eastern time. We're doing a Zoom chat. I'll be hosting that, but really I'll just be handing questions off to you. So that can be questions from how the heck do I sign up for this? I ran into this problem, to more in-depth questions about float research that people have, or just any questions about the Float Research Collective in general. I feel like, we can't get to everything in this podcast episode. And even based off this episode, I think people will have questions based off of that. So join up. It's kind of fun because it's an earlier in the day one, which I think usually roundtables are a little bit more in the evening. So if you're not able to make those usually, and I'm talking very America-centric right now, I know this might be a total blessing for other people in different countries, but this can be an opportunity for certain people to make one of these that generally isn't able to. But then it's not considered a live QA, or is it? But there is also an FTA-organized launch for the Float Research Collective. And I think you can find it online at the FTA website, but also all this information is always in the Float Collective and on Facebook. I know we were talking about social media as the end of the world, but FTA does have a Facebook page. You can find the information there. Theirs is on the 29th, and it's at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you are a little bit more evening-centric, join then, and that's also on Zoom, and the meeting code and passcode are again on the wherever you want to find it, whether it's the website or the Facebook page.
Cool. I'm looking forward. So that's this Wednesday coming up.
The first one's this Wednesday. I'm stoked. Again, shout out to Jonathan. He'll be doing the mix and making sure that can actually live stream into, I believe, the collective, if not just Art of the Floats page. But I think he has the technical know-how to actually pump it into the Float collective, which it's been a long time since we've done that. So I'm really excited about that. Those live ones are always fun.
Nice.
Kim, you're behind the scenes too. What have we missed anything that you're like, oh man, they gotta talk about this?
No, I think we covered it all. I mean, a big piece will be the social media part, and I'm super excited to see folks have some of that content that they can use on a regular basis. And I think, did we cover it? I don't think we covered it. There have been so many conversations happening lately that they're all kind of merging together in my brain. But we talked earlier about, I changed my fundraising goal. And that's something huge that as you're setting up, that you don't have to start small. You're not like on the hook for that money. And so you can change it. Right. And if you start getting really close to hitting your goal, ramp it up a little bit. So I'm curious to Drew, now that you know what you know, what's your goal?
$1 million.
Yeah, Drew.
Just $1 million? It's not very much in today's.
Well, if I'm not on the hook, why not aim big, right? Go shoot for the stars, see what happens. Yeah, that's and
right.
We'll just go for that,
You really you never know. Yeah.
Never know.
You never know.
You never know. I'm excited to do that. But something that I do think, I just want to throw this out there, that I do think it would be helpful. Imagine all of the cool little, 15, 20-second fun facts or behind-the-scenes information a Float Research Collective TikTok page would have. I could just people. I know TikTok sounds like a little kids thing, but there's a lot of like business people on there and people using it to share information in other ways. And I do think that you have a personality that would be great to share. And I just want to give you some kudos that I'm with you. I'm not of the TikTok age that it's like, hey, let me put a TikTok video. But if you had someone to help you and kind of guide you with some of these fun facts, I think the people who suffer from anxiety are scrolling in social media like wild. And if you started being the anxiety fact guy and how floating could help that and the research that proved that, these kids are out there in the age bracket of high school to like 25, 26. I get a lot of those that come into my float center, and I really do think social media is doing a number on them, but that's how they are reached. And that's how stuff goes viral and gets in front of 1 million people because some popular kid who suffers from anxiety retweets it. Right? Or whatever on TikTok. I don't know how that works. But I just wanted to kind of give my props to you that I think you would be awesome to do that. And I understand the barriers to doing that. But if you got someone to help you and kind of guide you with that, I think my wife would be phenomenal.
Brooke is really pushing for this. I mean, she loves TikTok. I think she's addicted to it, to be honest, like half the other part of the world.
Probably.
But she thinks that it's a necessary thing. And you're right. We're going to figure out some way to convince me. It may take a few bourbons, Kim, at the Louisville conference to finally get me to do TikTok, but we'll see.
Consider it done.
I think you're good. I think you're in good hands with Brooke. I think that's exactly who we should be. We should go right over Justin and go right to Brooke with TikTok. Drew, what are your thoughts after hearing about this? I mean, you're kind of coming in blind a little bit. I'm just curious.
It's very exciting. It's all. I mean, all of the things that you're saying tonight, as far as what you're researching, are reasons that most people who own float centers currently got into the business. Like, it was helping me feel better. It was helping other people feel better. And in a time, I'm coming up on 5 years. Kim's coming up on 5 years. Dylan's 13?
Something.
Even 5 years ago, everyone who I knew told me it was a dumb idea to open a float center. They had never heard of it, didn't know what I was talking about, didn't understand it, didn't think anyone would pay money to do it. Right. And then as people came into my float center, and I'm talking people, my friends, family, people I care about, they did it and then said, oh, I see. I feel really good right now. I don't know why I feel like this, but I get what's going on here. You have something. And that anecdotally, when people float, they're like, yes, something's here. But like you're saying, how do we do that? And I think we're in a time where I hear a lot from people who come into float who find us because they don't want to be on those pharmaceutical drugs. And they know that they shouldn't be on those pharmaceutical drugs. So maybe that is part of our journey as Float Center owners, is to spread this to the world, and where you're going to help be that conduit for us to, we're not the smartest people owning the Float Center, so we need a little help with how to do that, the information that we would share. And I think it's a great idea to, be the voices to spread that through our social media and talking to the people and seeing, who will help out the industry and the people who have been floating for 2, 3, 4 years. I believe in my Float Center will donate something because they care about floating. So we have that bond, and hearing all of this tonight was very exciting. And I kid about the $1 million, but I'll start at a $10,000, fundraising goal and go from there and see if we can keep going up and up, but I'm very excited about it. I'll be honest, Doc, I'm kind of on my way out of the industry, but I just got really excited about it again, and I'm feeling really good about it. And I'm happy with having someone like you leading this charge, because I don't know why, but you're really into it. And I assume it's because you have floated and seen the benefits of floating. So maybe that's a quick answer. I don't know. But to have you on board and being an advocate for this industry, I think is awesome. And I'm really excited by it. And I'm looking forward to the future of what this can bring to the world.
Oh, that's awesome, Drew. We can't lose you, first of all. So you got to stay with us. To me, the reason I got into this, beyond the experiential effects of floating, even for myself, is the data. Mm-hmm. As somebody who spent his life training to get a PhD in clinical neuropsychology and really understanding the root of different types of mental illness like anxiety and how it works in the brain, I've yet to see a treatment that's so simple, that's so natural, yet so effective in terms of the reduction of anxiety throughout the nervous system, both the brain and the body. It's really a whole body treatment. It's incredibly effective. It works in a diverse population because it's basically reducing all forms of stimulation on the nervous system. It's so simple. In the modern age, it's so necessary. Mm-hmm. And, to me, Drew, we're part of a secret right now. Most people have never heard of this. But guess what? That is about to change, you guys. September 26th, stay tuned. The Float Research Collective is getting ready to launch.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Dr. Feinstein. Truly appreciate it. Yeah, it's okay. We can clap. Yeah.
All right. I was there clapping.
Thank you for joining us.
It really is. It's huge.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's very exciting.
And thanks for everything that you're doing to make this happen. A true trailblazer, a visionary, and I can't imagine being more excited for who would be leading this. Your passion and your heart are just incredible. So thank you. Yes, to wrap up, again, join us on Wednesday the 21st if you're listening to this episode soon. And also join up on the 26th, I want to say, for the FTA.
29th?
Oh, excuse me, 29th. Sorry. Thank you. Oh, yes, thank you. And be part of the launch. And sign up right now. Go to clinicalfloat.com and click on that fundraise button and sign up. It really asks nothing of you. I think an email address is the only thing you would be giving away. And what that means is that you'll be getting a bunch of content to send out to your clientele. So, my goodness, yes. In closing, thank you, Kim, Drew, and Gloria. It's always such a pleasure. And again, I'll just say, Drew, it's great to have you back. Although big announcement there at the end. Oh my goodness. What is this? I need to ask I've got some follow-up questions.
We'll save it for another episode.
I guess so. It's too bad we don't talk outside of this podcast at all. We always save it for on air. So let's see here. Thanks to producer Olga. Thank you so much for making this show happen. And thank you so much to our sponsor, Float Helm. Helmbot. I'm still messing that one up. Thank you so much for Helmbot for making this show happen week after week. We truly appreciate your sponsorship, and making these beautiful episodes happen means so much to me to be supported in doing this. So thank you.
And if I may, Dylan, I'm sorry,
Yes,
but I have been a giant pain in their butt over the last week. I'm talking like 20 or 30 messages back and forth of me not understanding something, and they have been phenomenal.
Cool.
They have put up with me and continued to explain things when I don't understand it. So double kudos to the fine folks, Danielle, Joel, Lauren, all these awesome people over at Helmbot.
Totally agree. I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest things to talk about. I mean, you got to lay out the framework of the fact that it's a great software to use for a float center, and that how much you can do. But the customer service is bananas compared to any other, business that I interact with. It's ridiculous. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Shop.artofthefloat.com if you're interested in some real sweet swag. Dr. Flux has some swag on there if you want to check out some float related float swag. It's actually what our team members at the float shop wear now, is one of his sweet Caduceus float logos, and then it says float facilitator across the chest. But also older float images and videos that have been already released on Patreon. Speaking of which, if you're interested in receiving monthly batches of social media content, in addition to what you can get from the Float Research Collective, we have beautiful imagery and videos, scientific blog posts, and athletic image. I don't know, just a bunch of cool stuff. You should check it out. So go to patreon.com/Art of the Float if you're interested. And I think that is it. As always, sign up for the fundraiser as soon as possible so you can be part of that launch. That's the most important thing to me right now. I just want to see it make big waves right out of the gate. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.